I'm Detective Acting Superintendent Virginia Gorman. I'm the current Acting Commander of the Homicide Squad. So we're here today to announce a $500,000 reward for information regarding the murder of Radojko Djordjevic in Marulan 30 years ago. So, to recap, back on the 31st of January 1985, the decomposed body of a man was located in bushland off South Marulan Road, which is just east of the Hume Highway in Marulan in the Southern Highlands. That man had fatal gunshot wounds to the neck and to the chest. The man was identified later as being Radojko Djordjevic, who was reported missing by his wife when he failed to meet her and the children in Canberra, where they were at a church meeting. That church festival was on the 26th of January 1985. A coroner's report has indicated that Mr Djordjevic likely died between 9:30 p.m. on Thursday the 24th of January and 11 a.m. on Thursday the 31st of January 1985. Can't be more specific than that. It's believed that Mr Djordjevic may have been travelling to Canberra in a car with a number of other men. As a prominent member of Western Sydney's Serbian community, he was president of the Free Serbian Orthodox Church and president of the Old Toongabbie branch of the Liberal Party. And police believe there may have been a political motivation to his murder. In 2003, homicide detectives under Strike Force Wirra arrested and charged a man with a murder. However, he was later acquitted. As the case remains unsolved and under investigation, a $500,000 reward has been announced for information that leads to the arrest and the conviction of the person or persons responsible for the murder of Mr Djordjevic. While the family of Mr Djordjevic were unable to be present today, they've expressed their heartfelt desire to have some answers in this case, which is now 39 years old, and it would mean a lot to them to know they have some justice in relation to their father's death. Today, in a bid to give his family some answers, we're appealing to anyone who may have information to come forward to police, and as a reminder, that information can be provided anonymously. Any questions?
Beyond the political motivation that you mentioned, can you maybe extrapolate a little bit? Can you tell us a bit more about what the motivation for this murder probably was?
Back in 1985, and I know you're all probably very young, you don't remember, but 1985, we look about how long ago that was to us. World War II was that far away to the Serbian community then. Now, Mr Djordjevic was an immigrant to Australia. He was born in 1937. He was a child of World War II. In 1985, Yugoslavia was in the process of fragmentation, and there were various different conflicts within the Serbian community itself. So the investigations at the time and subsequently by the unsolved homicide units would indicate that there were political power struggles within Serbian organisations in New South Wales. Mr Djordjevic was a prominent member of that community, and there was a degree of conflict within those organisations about basically control and direction of those organisations. That's about.
Why now the appeal reopening?
Well, as it's an unsolved matter, obviously we want to continue to try and find out, despite its age, it's getting along now, not 39 years since this occurred. Members of the family are getting older. Members of the public who might have information about this are also getting older. It's also a long time since then, so at a time like now you offer a reward. It might be the time when we're really a long way distance from those internal conflicts that maybe people will now be happier to talk about what was going on at the time and who may have been involved, or any information that would relate to this. No matter how small it is, it's very important.
I guess with the passage of time as well, you mentioned the person who was charged, but then they were later acquitted.
Yes.
Obviously, your net has been cast a little wider than just that individual today, perhaps. But I guess with the passage of time, whoever did this, well, they're probably getting on in age as well. So is this are you looking at this? This is probably our final throw of the dice before too many years go past.
That's exactly correct. There is time frames on these that at one point eventually it's going to become even more difficult than it is now, and it is largely based on age. But age, on the other hand, gives us some benefits too, that people now may talk about things that they wouldn't talk about then. Which of course it may mean that this is about people who are now deceased, but that doesn't matter because the family need to know what happened to their father.
What is the realistic possibility of solving this case though, considering how it's been?
I wouldn't like to put a percentage or you're trying to talk about realistic at all. I like to think that there's always a chance if someone comes forward that there is a future in the investigation. I don't want to say one way or the other. Obviously with age, things get harder and harder, but like I said, potentially this is now the time to get things off your chest, to tell us what you know.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you tell us how he died, what the postmortem found?
He died of fatal gunshot wounds to the neck and chest.
Shot several times.
Yes.
And the location of the body, was it found close by the road that you mentioned, or was he buried? Was he wrapped up in something, or was he just dumped on the side of the road?
I can't give you the information, but I can find that out for you if that helps.
Would you mind giving a bit more information about his family? How many children does he have? What sort of age? How old
Miss-
are they now?
Okay, Mr. Djordjevic had 4 children from 2 separate marriages. We have contact with some of those children, and they've had a lot of input over the years and have discussed with the detectives of the Unsolved Homicide Unit several things along the way. I do believe that all 4 children are still alive, but they're now, the older children are aged in their 60s, the youngest ones would be in their early 50s. And considering their age at the time this happened, I believe one of the older children was 21 years old when her father was found, where the younger children, they were just young teenagers at the time. So for them, losing your father when you're in your early teens is particularly difficult. But they're all still around in Sydney, that I understand.
What do you think they might have been travelling Canberra? What was
My understanding is that the information that we have is that Mr. Djordjevic intended to join his family who were already in Canberra at the church festival. His intention was to do that. He was an unlicensed driver and wasn't driving at the time. Our information is that he potentially was picked up by people in a car and taken to Canberra. We've not definitely identified who those people may be. So anybody in that car could be of particular interest, or anybody who was in that car who wants to come forward and tell us about what happened, it'd be much
I
appreciated.
don't think they were in the Serbian community as well and travelling to this church, this celebration.
It's not been confirmed either way, I can't say. You could make an assumption, but on the other hand, I don't want assumptions can be wrong.
Is it fair to say you're looking very closely at that car trip and where he was going, who he was with, and what happened on that journey?
That car trip is particularly significant to the investigation.
And the injuries, the 3 gunshot wounds, do we know if it was like close range? If, like the nature of the injuries, does that give you any insight into the act?
I'm sorry, I would have to check on that information. I don't have anything further, but to be hit multiple times, unless you're some kind of super marksman, but considering we've also we've come from people who may have been from war-torn countries who may have that expertise, but we may not be. So I can't make any assumptions about that at the moment.